Hi there, I'm Lindsay Gordon, and you may recognize me and my voice as the host from Title Talks. Since we publish Title Talks every other week, we thought it would be a good idea to fill our off weeks with something a little different. For those of you who loved and remember our weekly news podcast, Four Stories, and we know you're out there, this one's for you. Introducing Title Talks Hot Takes. That's hard to say. Each episode, my colleague Becky Abbott and I will share what we think are the hottest stories dominating the title industry and why we think they should be on your radar. Becky?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Becky, probably a new voice to Title Talks, but certainly not new to the industry, and we can't wait to keep you informed.
Our goal is to invite different people onto Hot Takes to share their hot takes with you so you can stay informed about those most important happenings in the real estate and title industry. So today, our first story comes from Becky, and she's going to share what her hot take is.
Yes, there's been a lot going on with the housing market. We're constantly looking at Housing Wire, and this week they were talking specifically about a little bit of a shift in the normal housing market that we typically see. And we also saw some data coming out from Resi Club and their newsletter focusing on the same topic, which is really surrounding some of the more popular states that had an influx of home buyers coming in over the last couple of years and transactions, which is Florida and Texas. I live in Florida myself. I know you used to. And it has been a really hot market. But what's interesting now is that in southern Florida and northern Florida, it's really more selling homes than there are people buying them. So essentially, when there was an influx of people coming to move to Florida, it seemed like it was right after the pandemic. People either wanted the culture or the weather, or there were just a lot of homes available. They thought they could get value in what was being offered. The price was right and the investment made sense. And a lot of people today, first of all, we've built so much inventory with a lot of new builds expanding into different areas in the state of Florida. And I'm sure that's similar in Texas, just based on size, in the area that they have to build, that we've got tons of sitting inventory from the builders that just hasn't been bought out yet. Lakewood Ranch is one of the top cities with homes just sitting on the market. But also, people are saying that they don't really see the value in purchasing the home here in Florida anymore, with both the interest rates as well as the costs that aren't really moving. These homes are tending to sit even in the most sought after areas. So I know,
Wow.
you moved to North Carolina almost a year and a half ago now. That is in particular an area where people seem to be going to. What do you think about all this?
Yeah. So, I mean, I know, in the pandemic, when a lot of people started working remotely, that's when we started working remotely at PropLogix. And so it was kind of looking at like, where can I go? And I think a lot of people, I did the opposite. And I think there were a lot of people in Florida who did the opposite, who are like, it's hot here. And I don't know, if I want to be here for a long time. So it's like, where's somewhere I can move that's pretty temperate, but that's relatively low cost of living, that kind of has a city feel. And I think that's why a lot of, like, they call it the Sun Belt. So it is really the southeastern, part of the US and Texas. And I mean, I run into people all the time who are from Florida, but then I run into a lot of people who are from New York and Michigan and Ohio, like places where it gets really cold. It definitely doesn't get as cold here, but like in the Charlotte area, it's obviously a huge fintech and, financial city where there's tons of banks. A lot of them have their, Southeast headquarters here. And so, the cost of living here is probably a lot less than it is in like a major metropolitan if you're coming from Boston or New York. But I know that the price here is going up. There's a lot of new development in Charlotte and the areas that we live, but it is interesting to sort of see, because I feel like the narrative has been that there's just not enough inventory, and now it's like certain areas that have had the demand for quite a while in this like Sun Belt area are really meeting that demand and like exceeding it, really, because so many things are stagnant because people aren't necessarily wanting to buy overpriced houses or like get themselves into a 7% interest rate when they so recently, saw how low they had gone. So I think a lot of
Yeah.
people are just kind of like holding off a little bit. But
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's definitely showing a shift, and I don't know if it will change back anytime soon. It's almost like if only you could predict where people would want to live, years down the line.
I'm
Florida
sure.
wasn't ready for it, and now you guys, the people want to move to the North Carolina area, but you're probably going to work on building up inventory. And once it's done, who knows if the people will still be coming? So we'll see. But I know you had some interesting news that you wanted to share as well.
Yeah, so the story I wanted to share was originally reported out of Bloomberg earlier this month, and there's since been coverage in Housing Wire and the Title Report. And that's that there's a draft measure from the CFPB, that's the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and they're considering a ban on home buyers paying for lenders' title insurance policies. And it's really the source of this purported draft rule from the CFPB is from like quote someone familiar with the matter. So it's not like we haven't seen a plan, we haven't like there isn't some like concrete thing. It's just kind of like I guess hearsay. But the title report said they did reach out to the CFPB and they had asked a spokesperson, and they neither confirmed nor denied the plan. But that they are looking at closing costs and fees associated with consumers and what they're paying for purchases and like closing fees. So I think it's really important, with this kind of story. Obviously, we know that the president had mentioned title insurance in his State of the Union. I think the industry felt really called out and feels like there's a bit of a target on our back. The administration keeps saying that they're looking at, closing costs and fees that home buyers are paying. But of course, it's an election year, and the housing market is not looking great for first-time home buyers. We see news about that all the time. And so, if you want to get reelected, you're going to look at things that people are talking about, and the market is a huge, huge piece. And, so it's kind of, is it really going to come to fruition or not? Is it really something that we really need to be worried about? So anyways, yeah, it's not something that's necessarily formalized. And I know you and I had been chatting before, and we were talking about like, it's easy to forget as people within the title industry. We obviously know the value. We obviously know why it's so important. But like for someone outside of the industry, I remember when I first came into PropLogix like almost 9 years ago, and I was understanding like the way the title insurance is paid for, who pays for what, how, like the lender's policy versus the owner's policy, and understanding how that worked. Like I remember thinking that's strange that the owner pays for the lender's policy, even though that's just the way it's always been. So I think it's really, it's easy to forget that that's just the way it goes for us, and that it's like, why would we do it differently? But that people who don't live in it every day can look at it and say that doesn't make a ton of sense to us. So like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Or they feel like they heard, the ability to save money when purchasing a home, and that captures their attention, but they don't realize that it could be at the expense of protecting them from financial liabilities that could show up later down the road. So understanding both the importance of the, searches that are currently being done, what the title industry does, but also the impact that some of these changes could have. It's really education for the home buyers to make sure they know what protection they're paying for and what their options are if they actually wanted to pay more. I know that last year Fannie Mae had talked about the waiver program. That was as vague as it was. The information that we did uncover seemed like it was specific to a second mortgage or a refinance on a house. And so, it is interesting to hear this topic circle back again, even though Fannie Mae took that off the table in August of last year. So, and there's no sign of another pilot program coming up. It's just, like you said, vague conversation, and the industry really trying to figure out more. So we can do our best to promote positive change on the right ways to save money for the consumers when purchasing, since we know it is so difficult right now.
Yeah, for sure. I think it just kind of goes to show that it's really important to pay attention. because there isn't anything formal right now. There isn't anything written out that like people have, like the public has access to. I know obviously the American Land Title Association is on top of it, and they're trying to, do what they can to educate lawmakers, policymakers. And so, just paying attention and being aware, because things like this, like with the pilot program, there was enough uproar. There were enough people taking action saying, hey, we don't think this is right. We don't think that, we feel like it's overreach. We feel like these, regulatory bodies shouldn't necessarily be making rules about title insurance without having people from the title industry really being part of the conversation. So, it's just something that we're following closely and making sure that we stay on top of it, because it is important, and there is a lot that we can do to do better to educate the public.
Consumers. Yeah, exactly. And I think you said it, this will not be the last time that you guys are hearing about this. As things unfold, we'll continue to keep you updated so we can help, you pay attention to what's going on and how that may impact you. I know that Alta Advocacy is next week. I'm going to be there on Capitol Hill, joining some of the conversations myself. So we'll definitely be discussing that in another one of these episodes. And the other thing that kind of caused some uproar this week was the discussions on non-competes. I know the FTC listed that they might put a ban on them, and nothing's set in stone yet. We don't know what's going to happen, but it's certainly been a topic of conversation on a lot of phone calls this week.
Yeah, for sure. There's like a lot of talk about how it's going to be challenged by big organizations who feel like this is not necessarily favorable for business. But how it shakes out is still, remains to be seen. And I think, in the case with the non-competes, it's really, there's I think good things on both sides. Ultimately it's important to be aware that even though a non-compete may not be, you can't have a non-compete anymore if it stands, that people still can't, you can still hold people to NDAs. They can't go and take your
intellectual property.
Your intellectual property, that's still something, I think it's a little friendlier for people who are in an area where they are able to, potentially get another job because that job pays more, or it's just better, opportunities. So it's just going to help, I think, essentially with individuals growing their careers and potentially their salary ability. So
absolutely. And just a job in general, I think, we all know it's been a challenging couple of years with inflation rates and market impact in so many different industries. Real estate got hit hard, but so did so many others. And I think it's important to recognize a lot of people in the last couple of years have unfortunately been laid off or furloughed, lost their jobs and their ability to make money. And you just want to make sure that you're setting people up for success, for professional growth. If there was no performance issues, and to your point, no intellectual property is being stolen, how can we help guide you to survive in this crazy world?
Yeah, for sure. Well, so that's all our hot takes for this week. And we just want to let you guys know that this is a special episode. What we are going to be doing is we're going to be releasing hot takes episodes every other week on Thursdays. So we just had a new episode of Title Talks drop, and our next hot takes will be next week after Becky gets back from advocacy with Alta.
Yes, we can't wait to see you there. Thanks for joining, guys.